You are tuned into Locked On Royals and the Locked On Podcast Network. As always, I'm your host, Jack Johnson, and you can find me on Twitter at JohnnyJ_15. That's at JOHNYJ_15. You also can catch us on wherever you get your podcasts. That can be Spotify, Apple Podcast, Amazon Music, Google Podcast, Odyssey, and YouTube. Just be sure to hit the follow button and subscribe. For you first-time listeners, here's how our channel works. For this podcast, we bring it to you Monday through Friday, with Friday being a mailbag Friday where you can be included in the episode by simply just sending in a question to either my Twitter handle or you can just comment on one of our videos from this week. We also have the Royals postcast, which will be coming to you after each and every Royals game. It'll just be a live 15-minute recap, but that will be hosted by Chance Lebo. So since we're now doing that, I'm going to be putting my episodes out every single Monday through Friday before 12:30 Central Time. So that's now when you can expect it. Not going to be doing the late night recaps just because we have the postcast already. Then you'd be waiting for mine a little bit later on around midnight and 1 a.m. So I feel that the best time to do our episode will be Monday through Friday before 12:30. However, we also bring you 60-second YouTube shorts after the Royals game, so you'll have some form of content from me, but the postcast will also be after each and every Royals episode, and that continues even into the weekend. As always, questions and comments can be left to that Twitter handle or on this YouTube video below. And as you can tell, if you're watching on YouTube, still not up and running on StreamYard. Not really sure when that's going to get going, but for the time being, you can just expect us to be doing these episodes through Zoom. The only thing that's that different is we don't have the pretty looking graphics on the screen. We still got the camera working and we got the background, but we just don't have everything set in place. But one of these days, we'll get StreamYard up and running, or StreamYard will get up and running, and all of us hosts will be able to use it in a timely manner and not have to deal with all the connection problems. So let's kick off today's show talking about two very intriguing pieces that I found online. And the first one being about the Royals and the possibility of them selling after their free fall. So this came from Mark C. Healy, who is the editor-in-chief of the At the Rockaway Wave, which is a newspaper that is based in New York. So it looks like this guy does cover the New York Mets, and he tweeted out this morning around 8:23 a.m. that he's hearing Royals ownership has told J.J. Piccolo to start thinking about trading some veteran talent. With that in mind, I certainly hope that Seth Lugo is on the Mets' radar. He's certainly going to be attractive for many teams. Mets shouldn't wait to inquire. But then this also comes out from Alex Gold, over from Cody and Gold on 96.5 The Fan, that J.J. Piccolo was on with them this morning, and he said that is unequivocally false. That's as false as can be. So we can squash those rumors right away and know that John Sherman has not told J.J. Piccolo, at least per J.J. Piccolo, that his team is not being forced to sell, that they are already going to be looking to trade away pieces. And I found that tweet coming out a little bit poorly timed, if you will, and not so much about the team, but it was that literally a day or two before, Jim Bowden has an article out there in The Athletic about the Royals actively shopping for corner outfield help. And J.J. Piccolo and John Sherman don't give off the impression that because of this 6-game slide and where they are at, that it's now time to start selling. We have to acknowledge that this team is 72 games into the season. It's not for me to play devil's advocate here for all of those out there that want the team to sell. It's just simply stating that it really is very early on in the grand scheme of things. We're almost halfway. We're 9 games away from being halfway. They're 24, 25 games away from the All-Star break. So there is still a big enough sample size to truly know who this team is. And what this team has shown is they are clearly one of the worst offensive teams in baseball, but more so from a power standpoint and from a hitting with runners in scoring position standpoint. But you go and look at just batting average, and this is why I'm never for, well, batting average is the end all be all. It's a very basic stat. I like to do a little bit more of a deep dive to see what that team or what that hitter is really about. The Royals are middle of the pack in batting average this year. In fact, they have a higher slash line than their opponent tonight, who we're going to be talking about in the final segment. They have a higher average on base and slug and OPS, I believe, than the Texas Rangers. The Rangers have out homered them by 20 plus home runs, but still, the Rangers are a team that, like the Royals, have severely struggled. And the Rangers have also won, four in a row now. They've got the second best pitching staff in all of baseball. They mirror the Royals a little bit, only that their pitching staff is now pitching better than Kansas City's. But this segment is more so about the idea of buying or selling, what they should truly do. And I feel pretty confident that my next words here are going to be the words that I stick to no matter how this ends up by the end of the month. Their next set of games is against the Texas Rangers, who are ahead of them in the wild card race. They will have the San Diego Padres on the road, always tough to go in there and win. They will have the Tampa Bay Rays, who are ahead of them in the wild card race. And then they will have the Los Angeles Dodgers, talent-wise, the best team in baseball, coming to Kansas City next weekend. That will wrap up the month of June. And even though I just spewed that, well, it's 72 games in, there's still a long way to go. And you have those stories like Detroit of last year, and they were 4 games under 500 like the Royals, but in August. I mean, less than 2 months to go in the season, and they had an unbelievable run. That's not really a recipe for success, and I don't believe teams should look to that as we can be 4 games under 500 at that point, and our season's not over. It took being the best team in baseball over the final month and a half for the Tigers to even get into the postseason, and it was just barely. So if the Royals are under 500 in August, no, I don't see them getting to the postseason because I would imagine it would be unlikely for them to play like the best team in baseball for an extended period of time. They have to turn things around in a hurry. They can't wait around much longer, especially after getting swept by the Athletics and the New York Yankees over this last homestand. These stretch of games is the perfect measurement as to being a buyer or a seller. There are 4 games under 500. And if you play well in these next, what will it be, roughly 13-ish games, like you can make a lot of ground in 13 games. They're 3 games back of a playoff spot. They are a few games back of being in second place in the division, but it's been that way for a long time. These next 4 series, to me, are going to identify whether they are a buyer or a seller. Whether what this Mark character said is true, what JJ Picollo is saying is true, we will be able to know. Because if they go and get smacked around in Arlington, get smacked around in San Diego, lose the series to Tampa, get smacked around by the Dodgers, and you look up and they're 8, 9, 10 games under 500, I believe at that point, you need to identify who you're willing to move on from. And it doesn't need to be, which we'll talk about in our second segment, it doesn't need to be this, well, we're selling off all these pieces and we're starting from scratch. You can sell and still try to make somewhat of a push in the second half, but you also have to acknowledge that it's very unlikely you make that push, right? If you're going to trade away Seth Lugo, who was brought up in this tweet, well, you need to realize that your rotation's already a bit banged up. You don't really have that number 6 starter unless Rich Hill and Kyle Wright are ready to go, and maybe that would be the case. But to me, these series against great competition can also go the other way. Now, let's say, because baseball's weird like that, let's say they go and win the series against Texas. Let's say they go shock everybody and win the series against San Diego, win the series against Tampa, and then maybe take 1 out of 3 against the Dodgers. A long shot, I know, but that does change the perception of where this team's at. You've won 3 out of 4 series against all teams that are over 500, 2 of which would be ahead of you in the standings, and you got some momentum going toward the All-Star break. That would absolutely change the perception of what they need to be doing going toward the deadline. And I believe there's 3 ways of going about it. You can, because I don't see the 4th option being as likely here. The first option is you're buying. You called up Jack Caglione. You want to make sure that you are giving everybody a chance to make a push. You don't do it recklessly, because I've never seen JJ Piccolo be reckless in terms of pulling off a trade. They're usually very conservative in that approach. They are aggressive, they're just not recklessly aggressive. So you can go be a buyer and go and add and trade away pieces. You can be a seller and you can sell off, a couple of pieces here and there, and you're acquiring prospect talent, but you're only like selling one or two guys there, guys that are not going to be on your team next year. The third option is you're selling, but you're selling also with a hint of buying. Like, you are trading away pieces and bringing in talent like a corner outfield bat, like guys at the big league level that can help you out now and still give you a push. That fourth option is selling off everybody. Selling off anybody that has value, and you go, our window's closed, we're not winning next year, it's time to punt and worry about it 2 or 3 years down the road. And I don't see that being very likely, because that's not the impression I've been getting from JJ Piccolo or from John Sherman. So what they plan to do, I really do believe it's going to be identified by the end of June. And even though there would still be, a half a season of baseball left, you would have a pretty good knowledge as to where they're at going into July. And if they're 9, 10 games under 500, I say sell. If they're 500, I say buy. If they're a game or two under 500, I say buy. Not recklessly, but try to get a push, because the American League is wide open when you look at the playoff teams. It really is. Boston just traded away Devers. The Rangers were under 500 until these last 4 games here. You've got the Rays, who can be a little bit unpredictable. Cleveland and Minnesota, they've had their slumps. Minnesota's banged up again. Cleveland, they're started running out of firepower a little bit, though we're still incredibly talented. There's 2 top dogs in the American League. It's the Yankees and it's the Tigers. Everybody else, they're kind of all jumbled together. Okay, we're going to take our first break of the show. When we come back, so if they sell, how would they go about it? We'll talk about it next on Locked On Royals. You are tuned into Locked On Royals and the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jack Johnson, and you can find us on wherever you listen to your podcast. That can be Spotify, Apple Podcast, Amazon Music, Google Podcast, Odyssey, and YouTube. Just be sure to hit the follow button and subscribe. Before we dive into our second segment, I want to tell you about Supply House. Get the supplies you need from the site made for the skilled trades. That's Supply House. Whether you're in plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, Supply House is the reliable way to order products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Plus, with a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from 400-plus top brands, you'll find exactly what you need delivered fast from coast to coast. Need help with an order? Supply House offers expert support and industry-leading service, so you'll always talk to a real person. And for trade pros looking for an extra edge, their free Trade Master program offers exclusive perks like a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Thousands of skilled professionals are already taking advantage. Now it's your turn. Join the Trade Pro program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Plus, use promo code SH5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. So let's play the side of what this team will do if these next few weeks bottom them out, right? If they don't win the series in Arlington, they get swept in 2 out of these 4 series. They win like 3 games over the next four series. Then you need to identify who you are willing to move on from and why. And I don't believe it is to anybody's surprise that pitching would be what they need to unload. And you start to evaluate what this team will look like in 2026. We know that Vinny Pasquantino, Bobby Witt Jr., Maikel Garcia, Jack Caglione, Cole Reagans, Noah Cameron, Chris Bubich, Lucas Ursig, Carlos Estevez, Michael Wacha, those guys are all going to be there next year. And if they are selling, I don't see it being a fire sale, because they would still feel that their window is open. What they would need to do in the offseason and what they would need to do at the deadline is bring in some offensive production. Truly bring in some talent that can help you in this lineup, because you're never going to be able to compete with Detroit or New York with an offense that you have currently, at least the way that they're playing. So trade chip number 1, even though JJ Piccolo said on 96.5 The Fan that it's unequivocally false about being forced to trade away some of these veteran pieces and start thinking about it. But if they do move in that direction, Seth Lugo becomes trade chip number one. And there are so many teams out there that could use Seth Lugo. The Dodgers desperately need starting rotation help. Even though they got Ohtani back on the mound last night, they are so banged up. And we know the Dodgers are trying to repeat. And we know they are the most talented team in all of baseball. Seth Lugo would give them a huge boost in that rotation. And we can all acknowledge that Seth Lugo might not be back here next year. He's got the opt-out, and if he's pitching the way he's been pitching, he may try to go get one more big contract before he calls it a career. And teams are going to be hunting for him if he goes out in the postseason again and shines. So if you're the Royals, unless you feel confident that Seth Lugo is going to be in your price range next offseason, or he opts back in for whatever reason, then maybe you don't trade him. But this is also the business of baseball. You pick and choose who you feel is going to be there long term. And I feel that with the emergence of Noah Cameron, maybe you can write off Cole Reagan's just being unhealthy this year and you try again next year. Michael Wacha's under contract. There's three guys. Then you will have Michael Lorenzen and Seth Lugo, who Lorenzen's my second choice here because he's only on a one-year deal. Those naturally become great trade chips as the Rangers traded him to the Royals last offseason. You could have a very similar type of deal where instead of you get Walter Pennington, a reliever in return, you go out there and get a bat that may be blocked somewhere in return for him. But with Lugo and Lorenzen, those are spots you need to replace in the rotation next year. To me, you've got four spots that are locked down because of Chris Bubich, of course. So you need to go after one more guy next offseason. That shouldn't be too much of an issue. So you could be more willing to move some of those pieces that you have in your rotation. And they could generate a big return. Seth Lugo, I wouldn't expect it to be a blockbuster trade, but you could get some serious help for the lineup, not only this year, but next year if you do choose to move him. Then you move to the bullpen here. I've always said that relievers have a short shelf life. Like when they fall off, they really fall off. And Lucas Erceg, I don't see him going anywhere. Estevez, I don't see him going anywhere. Those two feel like the relievers that you're not moving on from. As for the rest of them, Steven Cruz will have trade value. You will have trade value with Daniel Lynch. You will have trade value with John Schreiber, another guy on a one-year deal. There will be teams trying to make a push that would absolutely take on one of those relievers and give you something in return. As we saw last year with Hunter Harvey, the Royals had to give up their number 2 prospect in Caden Wallace. So there will be a maybe expensive market on relievers. And the Royals have already proven this year that they are constantly churning out reliever talent. Taylor Clark could be another name that you could move. So all of these pitchers you should feel comfortable in at least discussing trades for, because you have shown the ability to transform a lot of these guys. If you move on from Seth Lugo, maybe Daniel Lynch makes starts the rest of the way. And that would put 4 lefties in your rotation. And with Cole Reagan's on the injured list, that's why I feel that they might be a bit hesitant to trade away Seth Lugo, because I also don't think they're going to be so out of a playoff spot by the All-Star break. Like, I would say worst case scenario, and maybe I'm being too optimistic here, but I would say worst case scenario for the Royals at the trade deadline is being 6 or 7 games out of a playoff spot. I don't see them getting to that point where they are 10 to 15 games out of a playoff spot. That's usually reserved for the bottom 2 teams in the American League, and though they've been in an awful stretch, I don't see them getting to that point. That doesn't mean you should buy, or that doesn't mean you should keep your cards with you and say, well, we're not trading anybody because we're hopeful we can make a run. But it should signal that trading away everybody, trading away all the offensive players you got, like trading Vinny and Garcia, I don't see it going down that way. And it's not that I'm trying to say believe in this team, stick with them and they're going to be a playoff team. I am just telling you what I expect the front office to do. Even in years where they were obvious sellers, they didn't unload everybody because they also feel they are still in a window of contention. And if you feel you're in a window of contention, you don't need to fire sale everybody. What it tells you to do is that going into the offseason, you got to be more aggressive than you were last offseason. And that's what I expect to happen. If the Royals don't make it this year, if they even do make it and get bounced in the first round, I expect them to be far more aggressive on the offensive market than they were this past season. Because clearly they got the hint, not even the hint, they got the message that this group is just not consistent enough offensively. And they are going to need some heavy hitters in that lineup to compete with the rest of the American League. But if they are going to sell, that's how I imagine they would go about it. Seth Lugo becomes trade chip number 1. Lorenzen becomes trade chip number 2. And then you look at an abundance of bullpen arms that you have and try to restock the farm system and try to restock the big league level as well, and getting in maybe a reliever you could work with, another starter, or a bat that might be blocked somewhere at the big league level. Okay, we're going to take our final break of the show. When we come back, let's preview this 3-game set in Arlington against the Texas Rangers. That's next on Locked On Royals. You are tuned into Locked On Royals and the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jack Johnson, and you can find me on Twitter or X at JohnnyJ_15. Want to tell you about OpenPhone. If you're running a business, you know that every missed call is money left on the table. Think about the last time you had a service emergency, like a burst pipe. Even if the plumber didn't answer, did you wait? Nope, you called the next one. That's why having a reliable business line is so important, and that's why you need OpenPhone. OpenPhone is the #1 business phone system that helps you streamline and scale customer communication, all from an app on your phone or computer. So here's what you need to do. OpenPhone is offering Locked On Royals listeners 20% off on your first 6 months at openphone.com/LockedOnMLB. That's OpenPhone.com/LockedOnMLB. And if you have existing numbers with another service, OpenPhone will port them over with no extra charge. OpenPhone, no missed calls, no missed customers. And just a reminder that every single episode moving forward, Monday through Friday, will be brought to you before 12:30 p.m. Central Time. I can guarantee that I'll have this edited and uploaded. Hopefully later on this week, we'll have StreamYard at our fingertips so we can get back to normal. But you can expect that. And as for tonight, you can look for our Royals postcast on the channel, hosted by Chance Lebo. And you can also look for our YouTube shorts. I know I've been pretty bad about them lately, especially over the weekend. I've just been really busy with family stuff, wedding stuff, doing all kinds of busy work on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Always haven't had the opportunity to do those 60-second recaps. But during the week, should never have an issue to get them up. And this weekend shouldn't have any issues either. It will be a West Coast game, though, so it'll be up very, very late in the night, or I guess you could say early in the morning. Let's dive into this series against the Texas Rangers, a team that has suddenly found some new life, and they are doing it basically on the backs of their pitching. Their offense has not been good this year. They've had a ton of hitters regress, and it's not going to surprise me if there's a combined 12 runs in this series. You just have two teams that pitch really well and don't hit at all. And going into tonight's matchup, it'll be a 7:05 first pitch with Seth Lugo, who we've been talking about on the bump for the Royals. And it'll be Jack Leiter, a legacy in Major League Baseball, going for the Texas Rangers. He is 4-3 with a 3.88 ERA. As for some of the numbers, only one hitter for the Royals has faced Jack Leiter, and it is Mark Canha. He is 2 for 2 with an RBI in his 2 at-bats. And as for Seth Lugo and facing the Rangers, only 3 guys have seen Lugo surprising with as long as he's been around. Jake Berger is 0 for 4, Kyle Higashioka is 0 for 1, and Corey Seager is 0 for 4 as well. Nobody else in that Rangers lineup has seen Seth Lugo in his entire big league career. But as for Jack Leiter, again, his ERA 3.88 on the season, and he's been around that over his last 7 starts. He's 2-2 with a 3.55 ERA, though his last 3 times out, he has not worked that deep into the game. He did have two efficient starts against the Cardinals and the Rays. He went 5 2/3 and gave up only 3 hits, no runs against the Cardinals back on May 30th. And then on June 5th in Tampa, he went 5 innings and gave up only one earned run, struck out six, and walked one. But last time out at Minnesota, he managed to only get 12 outs in the game, give up 5 hits, 4 earned runs, 4 walks there, and 3 strikeouts. So struggled with the command a little bit, was knocked around, but it was mainly due to the lack of efficiency in the zone against the Twins. But overall on the season, has been very effective and has bounced back from a brutal rookie season in which he had an 8.83 ERA in 9 games. He's got explosive stuff, really hard thrower. Again, the number 2 overall pick going back to 2021. The Royals will have their hands full, and that shouldn't be much of a surprise, even if Jack Leiter was last year's version with an 8.89 ERA. The way this offense has been going, they just don't have anybody, timed up. It doesn't feel that they are putting together the best at bats. They have the best approaches. Maybe getting out of Kansas City, as crazy as that sounds, could spark something, but it's going to be a tough matchup tonight. They got a very good, young, and lively arm on the bump. Fortunately, they got Seth Lugo going up against an offense that currently, in terms of all those offensive numbers, ranks lower than the Kansas City Royals. On Wednesday, I might have said Friday earlier. On Tuesday, it was Lugo and Leiter. On Wednesday, it'll be Chris Bubich going for the Royals, trying to bounce back from his worst start of the season. Still 5-4, the 1.92 ERA, and no starter has been listed for the Rangers. I thought going into the series that we'd be seeing Tyler Mahle and then Jacob deGrom or Nathan Eovaldi in one of these starts, but you look at the next two games, it's a little bit different for the Rangers. But for Chris Bubich, somebody that is totally different than the last time the Rangers saw him, because when they last saw him in Arlington, they were able to light him up a little bit. But there are some hitters in Texas's lineup that do have some experience off him. Adolis Garcia is 1 for 5 in 5 at-bats. You have Sam Haggerty, who's 0 for 2. Jonah Heim has 3 at-bats against him, hitting .667. Kyle Higashioka is 0 for 5. Corey Seager is 1 for 4. Marcus Semien is 0 for 1. But as for, the Rangers starter, we don't really know who that's going to be. And I checked on MLB. I checked on ESPN. I asked around a little bit. Didn't really know who the Rangers are going to be throwing. I wasn't very sure of who the options might be. As for the next game, the series finale on Thursday, it'll be Michael Wacha going for the Royals up against Patrick Corbin, who's really had late career revival, if you will. I mean, he's found something with Texas. He was pretty much on his way out in Washington, had the huge contract, never really lived up to it, but this year has been pretty damn good for the Rangers rotation. But as for Wacha, he's coming off that outing on Friday night against the Athletics. He is 3-6 with a 3.38 ERA in 80 innings, a 3.24 ERA over his last 7 starts. Unfortunately for him, following that 7-inning shutout performance where he allowed only 1 hit to Detroit, he got 2 lesser opponents in the White Sox and the Athletics, but gave up 8 earned runs in 11 1/3 innings in those 2 starts. So not really typical Michael Wacha. But as for Patrick Corbin, another, I don't want to say a journeyman, more of just a veteran in all of baseball, he's going to be another guy that I could absolutely see giving the Royals a ton of problems because he's more of a soft-tossing lefty. But he's got a 3.66 ERA on the season. Going back to April 22nd, he has not allowed more than 3 runs in any outing. He faced the Athletics back-to-back outings on April 22nd and April 28th, gave up just 2 runs there, only gave up 1 to Seattle on May 3rd, 2 to Detroit in 7 innings on May 9th, gave up 3 to Colorado in 6 innings, gave up 3 in 5 innings to the Yankees, 3 in 5 1/3 to the White Sox, 2 in 5 1/3 to the Cardinals, 2 in 8 innings to Washington, his former team, and then last time out against Minnesota, he gave up just 3 runs on 6 hits in 5 innings. So he's been very efficient. This was the Patrick Corbin the Rangers were hoping to get and probably thought that would be his ceiling. Just efficient. He's going to be able to get 5-6 innings every single time out, keep them in the ball game, a true number 5 starter. And I would say that's why he's been so great this year and why the Rangers rotation has been so great. He's been efficient. He's been able to work deeper into games. And as for the Rangers, it's why they're number 2 in all of baseball for pitching. mean, they've got Evaldi, DeGrom, and Molly pitching all well. And then you've got guys like Patrick Corbin and Jack Leiter that are throwing well, something they weren't doing last year. But the Royals in these 3 games, at least they dodged the top 3 arms for the Rangers. But for what they've been doing over the last week and a half, I'm not really sure it matters that much. So give us your prediction on what they might do in this series. The Royals desperately need to snap their 6-game losing streak tonight. You can check out our Royals postcast after the game and our 60-second YouTube short. But as for us, that'll do it for another episode of Locked On Royals and the Locked On Podcast Network. I have been your host, Jack Johnson. Thank you for making Locked On Royals your first listen today. For your second, check out the all-new Locked On MLB Game Night. Every game, every night, all season long. Get local analysis on a national scale and find MLB Game Night on Locked On MLB on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. Tomorrow, we'll be bringing you a breakdown of Tuesday night's game and maybe a little bit of Major League Baseball draft talk. I know I've been pushing it off a lot, but I did go over mock draft and saw some guys the Royals may be linked to. But until tomorrow, you take it easy, Kansas City.